Chazara, chazara, chazara. Like just keep reviewing it and saying it, and then eventually it just becomes part of you. Okay, so welcome to the newbies here. I mean, you're not newbies, you've been watching. Okay, also, where are you? You're on the same page?
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. It's fine because it's cumulative and every single class could also be standalone, but it is also nice when you see it coming together. Today, actually, we're doing something. We're starting chapter 26, which is we really basically finished Tanya last week. That we learned like all the informational content that we need to be able to navigate this world. And now what we're going to start to do is figure out why it's so hard to implement it. We know some reasons why it's hard to implement because of klipas, whatever, but we're going to understand a little bit more today how to implement everything that we've learned. So we'll start with Chazara. Perfect timing. We'll start with Chazara, and then we'll actually slow it down a little bit today because last week we did tons, but we'll also review last week. Okay, so basically we started off by saying that we want to learn Tanya. Why? It's super close to me. It's super accessible to me. How do I do this? I want to learn how to be, let's say, a Benoni, right? So in chapter 1, it taught us about like the duality that we have within us. We have a Yetzer Hara and we have a Yetzer Tov. We have a Nefesh Elokis, we have a Nefesh Bahamis, we have an Esav, we have a Yaakov. We have two Shnei Gayim B'Vitnech, and it's very, very hard. And sometimes I feel spiritual, and sometimes I feel not so spiritual. And that's because we have two parts within inside of us, right? Then in chapter 2, we learned about the Nefesh Elokis, the godly soul, and its makeup, how it's made. We learned about its composition and its faculties. We learned that there's 3 intellectual, 7 emotional, right? Nod your head if you remember this, yeah? Okay, so we have 3 parts of us that are intellectual. Those develop into emotions that give birth to emotions. Then we learned about, in chapter 4, it was about the garments and the modes of behavior. I know Malki always knows the garments. The 3 garments are thought, speech, and action, right? So those are our modes of behavior. So everything can be in our thought, speech, and action. Then we spoke about, and that is our soul clothing, right? And then we also have soul food, which is Torah. Whoa, amazing. Wait, what's your name again? Malki's sister, right? Yeah. I know. Okay, were you here last week also? No.
All caught up.
Oh, amazing. Whoa, okay. So we spoke about that your soul is here in this world, right? Your soul wants to interact in this world, but it doesn't interact because it doesn't have a body. So Hashem says, fine, I'll give it food and I'll give it clothing, and then it can interact in this world. And then once it's here in this world, once it has those stuff, it can act out in this world. It's like, imagine like a paper doll and you give it clothing, so now it can act in this world. And then it also has emotions, and it also has intellect, and it can walk and talk, right, through its thought, speech, and action. So your soul can do so much, even though we don't see it. Okay, then we spoke about, in chapter 6, we spoke about the composition of the other soul, the animal soul. And guess what? The animal soul has the same capabilities. It has clothing and it has food, and it can also interact in this world, but it does it on a different level than the Nefesh Elokis. Then we said, if Hashem is everywhere, why don't we see him? Why don't I see Hashem all the time? Because of klipos, right? Because there are layers that are blocking me from accessing it or from me seeing it. So here's a perfect opportunity. We're like, obviously Hashem is here. It's Thursday morning. It's Erev Yontif. It's so relaxed. It's so chilled. I'm not thinking about my grocery list or my manicures or anything else I need to do because right now I feel okay and I can feel Hashem, right? But then when I'm in Gourmet Glatt and I got a ticket and I forgot my shopping list at home and my kids are screaming and they're calling because they came home and whatever, then it's very hard to see Hashem. Why? Because there's klipas there and we have to remove them in order to be able to see it. Then we spoke about, in chapter 9, we spoke about a little bit about the conflict between the two souls. We went back to them. We spoke about the small city and that there was a king. There was 2 kings, right? Who's going to have keys to the car to be able to drive it? Is your animal soul going to rule or is your godly soul going to rule? And then eventually we spoke about, in 10, we spoke about the tzaddik. And a tzaddik is somebody who has what? Perfect outsides and perfect insides. That means that everything that he does is totally aligned with Hashem. He thinks, breathes, feels, loves, hates, everything is with Hashem, like in the forefront. So Hashem is always, all his insides are exactly aligned to Hashem's insides. So Hashem tells him to keep Shabbos, and you're like, I'm keeping Shabbos, right? But there are 2 types of tzaddik. Some tzaddikim that have it easier, some that have it a little bit harder. Then we spoke about in chapter 11 the 2 types of rashas. And a rasha is somebody who has what? Perfect outsides, but perfect, but not really. Because like remember we said even if he messes up once, even if he kills once by mistake, he's a rasha. But a Rasha, B'tovlo, has regret. He feels bad that he made mistakes. And like I always say, don't fall into the zone that like I'm a Rasha because you make mistakes. No, we don't really want to make mistakes. We want to perfect ourselves. So we spoke about Tzaddik, Rasha, and then we spent 4 chapters on learning of the Beinoni. And the Beinoni is somebody who has perfect outsides, but insides are struggling. So he's struggling on the inside. So every single like moment of like calm and every single moment of connecting to Hashem and every single moment of eating kosher and keeping Shabbos is with a struggle, but on the outside it looks like it's perfect. And that's how we are supposed to work through this world. We're not supposed to be tzaddikim. We're supposed to be having struggles, but we need to keep it quiet. And then we spoke about a lot of times like how to put it quiet, to give it melatonin, to put it to sleep, to shush that part, but always be on guard for it, okay? Then 12, 13, and 14, we spoke about our first tool, which was, tell me how lost you are. Are you guys okay?
I'm catching up.
You're catching up. Okay, amazing. Yeah, I know. I feel like if I'm going too fast, then let me know. Okay, so then we spoke about the first tool that we got, which was that your intellect controls your emotions, and that is referred to as impulse control, right? I can control myself. I can't even tell you how many times I did it this week. I was like, I feel like I should get mitzvah notes for like Moshel Talev. Like if I was able to do that, then like pat on the back. What? I give myself a mitzvah note. I know. I have a friend that we give each other mitzvah notes.
That's a healthy version, isn't it?
Not like
Not
Nechama took a bath today. We are so proud. Love mommy. Like I have to like come up with stuff, right? So those are proper ones. So Moshel Talev is the brain rules over the heart. And that's impulse control. And then we said even in chapter 15, even if you're a Beinoni, you still have to work. Don't take the coasting Beinoni. Don't do like the smooth sailing, like I got this. I go to Shachars, I go to Mincha, I go to Ma'ariv, I keep Shabbos, I keep kosher, I keep do all that stuff because you want to get to a point where you're slightly uncomfortable that you have to work harder. And then we spoke about even if you're a Beinoni, you have to toil and you have to work. But then we spoke about this new version of Moshel Talev. So we said Moshel Talev, the first one is impulse control. The second one, which we learned in 16 and 17, is that through what we can start to find Hashem. Through tvunos and through meditation. Yes, excellent. What are tvunos? Pseudo emotions. Whoa, you're really good. You have like that vocabulary. Let's do the flashcards. I'm really gonna do it. Like when I like sit down and have time, I'm gonna make 10 time.
So helpful also.
Right. So it takes like 15 minutes to get through it, but like then you have it. So we have Moshel Talev, which is version 1 is impulse control, version 2 is meditation, create tvunos, slowly appreciate Hashem in your life, and then Hashem takes those tvunos, he attaches it to a good thing, and then your insides are more congruent with Hashem's feelings, thoughts, actions, everything. You just become more in line with Hashem through meditation. But what's the problem with meditation? What? It's a process. It's slow. It's like the water dripping under Rabbi Akiva's thing till it finally makes it. It's very, very slow. It could be years. It could be months. It could be an entire lifetime of just slowly meditating to find Hashem. So we said last week in 18 to 25, I want a quick fix, right? Like I don't want to wait online for hours. I want fast checkout, right? Like, you go to the grocery and you're like, I'm just gonna leave my wagon here for delivery. I always feel like such a boss when I do that. I'm like, I shop my whole thing. I just leave it over there and I'm just like, okay, take care of it, right? What's the fast, quick way of doing it? 18 through 25, we learned about a new tool, which was that you have inside of you latent love. And what was that word? Look at this. Whoa, you guys are amazing. Okay, I know. I'm like, I have my note. Today's an open note class. Sometimes I'm like, I could spew it, but not today. So the idea where Ava Mesuteris, that you have latent love inside of you that was given to you as a spiritual inheritance from your great grandmothers. Latent love. Latent. Like a love for Hashem that our Avos instilled in us. Inborn. Well, kind of like an inheritance, like a spiritual inheritance from Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, that they were so connected to Hashem. They passed this on to us, and it's an ability to remember and focus on Hashem in everything. So like, they're able to tap into that. And we didn't explain this so well last week, but after class, Mary helped me talk it out, and this wasn't recorded, but we were learning how like, when you look at your grandparents and you see what they stood for and what they survived for, and they're like, they went through the Holocaust so that we can have this. Or let's say recognizing Hashem in everything, like almost like focusing on this concept of like Eno Milvado, Mesiras Nefesh, connecting to Hashem in the deepest way, but very quickly taking that and immediately acting on it. So I had a hard time explaining this last week, but I think like over the week I tried to practice this idea. We gave an example of, let's say, and I think this was Shay's Hal's example, and of course I had this exact example happen to me. Like, remember the tomato story? I was like, oh my gosh, I also hate tomatoes. He was talking about it, but this is an exact example of, let's say, kashrus, right? Okay, so let's say my family's been because we wait 5 hours and 1 minute, okay? Some people 6 hours, some people 3 hours. But let's say I had fleischiks for lunch, which is like always a big no-no because like I come home from work and I just want a coffee. But like it was leftovers and it was good and whatever. And then I came home and my kids were like, hey, we're going to have pizza for supper. It was last night. And I was like, oh my God, I'm fleischiks. And I'm like, shoot. And like, I know it's so silly because it wasn't even like a fancy supper. But like, you know when you're very hungry and they brought home like pizza and cheese pretzels and cheese fries. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like it was I needed that push. And I've been keeping kosher since I'm born. Like it wasn't a hard thing, but it was just so weird that also I ate a late lunch. So I ate lunch at 2:30 and then I was like, shoot, I'm like, when am I milchiks? So I'm like starting to count and I'm like, what's wrong with you, Faigy? Like since when did you all of a sudden like not like kosher is kosher? Like this is what you weigh, this is what you, and it was like, I felt like and I know that I fell into this example just because we were learning it, but I was like, nobody knows if I eat like fleischiks for lunch or not. And they're like, Mom, are you coming for supper? And I was like trying to like push off supper because I'm like 7:15 or whatever, I'll be able to like eat it. But like it was so, and I was like, I needed something like just a quick push. And I'm like, I remember what we had learned last week about Adam Misuteris, that you have within inside of you this latent love that was inherited, and then if you focus on that for just a few minutes and say, not even, it's very quick, you think of it and say, this mitzvah that I'm about to do is either going to connect me to Hashem or disconnect me from Hashem, and everything is lying on this moment. It's that spiritual adrenaline that you need at that moment. The baby is in the car. This mitzvah is going to disconnect you from Hashem if you don't keep it. I stayed up in my room. I did an extra workout. I drank a power of coffee. And then by the time I came down, I was like, okay, now I can eat it. And it was such a weird thing that I was like, I wasn't struggling with it, but I realized that I was thinking last week that it has to be this grandiose thing for you to need adrenaline. It could be something that nobody even knows. But if you tap into that ability, and remember, Eno Levado, just focus on the glory of Hashem, like in a very quick way, not in a slow, meditative 16 through 17 chapter, but in a fast way, in a way that you can just like in that moment, make that decision, you can access it. That's the fast way of aligning your emotions to Hashem's emotions. Okay. Any questions on this so far? Yes.
I don't really want to, whatever.
Okay.
On the life. I basically have been waiting 3 hours since I got married. My husband's family waits longer. I was just like, my kids are babies. The oldest is 4. I'm like, I'm not ready. And everyone makes fun of me. I'm like very embarrassed. We don't talk about it. And after last week, after Friday, I'm like, that's it. Like, this was the sign.
Oh my God.
But my husband literally just like went. He's like, hey, they're getting older. Like, and I couldn't do it. I was very stubborn. I'm like, both our parents are about to, but like we all had all our time made up, whatever. And after last week, I'm like, that's it. Like no more 3 hours.
Whoa. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. And it's so weird because I was also like struggling with it this week. And I was just like, it's such a weird
I've
thing.
been struggling for 6.5 years. I'm saying,
crazy.
like, I literally wouldn't take it on. And it's very embarrassing, but like.
It's not embarrassing. It's funny. My
embarrassing.
daughter said something yesterday also. She was like, is that Chal Yisrael? And I was like, my contractor is so amazing. I guess like every time I nudge him, he always like sends stuff. So he sent this like huge like chocolate thing, whatever. And I was like, yum. And my kids are so excited. And it worked out because we had milkshakes. And yeah, I was like, is that Chal Yisrael? And I'm like, you don't need Chal Yisrael. And she's like, and I was like putting her down for a second. And then I was like, wait, maybe she was thinking of like keeping Chal Yisrael. And like I just squashed that, whatever, for a second. But my kids each do their own thing. Like some eat, some don't. But the fact that you're able to do that, you're like, 1 second, if I can do that.
Well, you just said you're like,
right.
You're either giving into your needs and her or you're not. And even though this is such a dumb thing, because like it's just such a dumb thing, but like every little time you give into your needs and her, it's obviously all going to build off each other.
But remember we were talking about the lines that we draw for ourselves. We're like, okay, this is what. Right. Everything. Right. Rationalize.
I stopped being called I stopped being called this because of all the like in camp. Really?
It's crazy. But then when you realize is that you could really do anything. You're like, if I can control myself I can control myself at any, like, there's so many things that I can stop myself from, even though I thought I didn't.
That you mentioned in last week, and
course.
Okay,
It's meant to be. I know. It's crazy idea. Okay, fine. So now what we were saying was 16 through 17. We were saying was like the software. 16 through 17 is something you can implement over time. Slowly create, slowly meditate to find a connection to Hashem. Then we said in 18 through 25, it's like hardware. It's like what you are built with. You are built with this ability to be able to connect or disconnect from Hashem. It's up to you. You have to choose, find that spiritual adrenaline to get you to the place where you need to be that moment so you could really change forever. So really, like we said, this is really all of Tanya. This is like all the information that you will need to get through life to be the perfect Benoni and to really work through everything. So now the question is, after this, really what do you need, right? Like if you know what my condition is, I know that I'm pregnant with twins, and I know that I have spiritual and animalistic things, right? So now I know that. Now I know if I want to be able, 9 through 12, I learned, okay, so control yourself. Control yourself. You have these two things, control yourself. Then 9 through 12, 16 and 17, we said slowly do it through meditation. 18 through 25, very fast, spiritual adrenaline. So what more do you want now? If I'm able, look, we already did everything. We're ready now keeping kosher, right? Like, so now that we're keeping kosher, what else do I need to do, right? And also, we said this in the beginning, why is it so hard to do it? So now I know all this. Why is it so hard? Trust me, I'm like grappling with this every second. I can almost not think of time. Like, I almost can't not think of it anymore because it's in my head, right? So now you're given a goal, which was behavioral perfection. I want to perfect myself behaviorally because I know I'm always going to be struggling. So let me try to perfect myself. And then you were given tools, 3 tools, right? Mal Shal Talev, 1, impulse control, 2, meditation, and then 3, the third tool is Ava Misuteres, that you have latent love. You have something inside of you that will always stop you, will always get to you no matter what. And it comes from somewhere, right? That's why people give up their lives for Yiddishkeit, because there's something there. So now we have this goal, you're given the tools, so what else am I supposed to be doing? So Tanya now continues. I almost feel like he's giving us it's like a little chizuk mission. Like, like they have these trips, which like I'm always dying to go on. Anybody ever do it? The chizuk mission?
I want to do it.
I really want to do it.
Tibi did it.
Yeah, it's like life changing. I know it is, and like I really want to do it. I'm like, hey Hashem, the right time I'm going to do it, or maybe we'll just do our own trip. We should just do it. I know. Now my girls in the city are like, can we go to Oman? I'm like, 1 second. I'm like, we do trips to South Africa and Barcelona and all these fun trips, and it's like your place, and they're like, can we go to Oman? I was like, are you kidding? And I'm like, okay, I guess this is rubbing off on you. No, fun Oman, good, have a good time, right? Okay, so now basically from now on, when you get I had this with all my appliances when they were coming in. Do you save the books for your appliances? Do you save your books for the appliances?
Online.
Everything is online, right? The first week I was like, how do I put everything on Shabbos mode? I'm opening up every single book, and I'm like, I'm not going to be that person who keeps it. Honestly, the people that we bought the house from gave us their papers from their appliances. I'm like, these are from 1983, and they have them. And I was like, okay, what? That's because they're not online. You're right. But do you ever read it? The first page. Okay, so first you have to figure out Chinese, Spanish, whatever. Get to the English one. And then it's all the pieces and all the parts, right? Then it's okay, Shabbos mode. How do I do Shabbos mode? Okay, then turn the page. Okay, freezer's too cold. All my fruits and vegetables are freezing. How do I do it, right? So it's almost like a troubleshooting guide. That's really what follows after the instruction and vocabulary list. So that's kind of what we're going through now. Now we have all the information. We have the tools. We know what the problem is, and we know how to fix it. So now let's deal with it. But let's deal with it, and this is key, by the way, in a very emotionally healthy way. I think it's very easy to jump and dive into things and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Tanya's life-changing, and it is. But it's how do I go about it in a way that's emotionally healthy? And I think this is probably the number one thing in today's day and age with our families, with our kids, with our coworkers, with our husbands. If you're doing anything not in an emotionally healthy way, I'm gonna just burn out, right? Burn out, do it the wrong way. We spoke about this so many times. We grew up in a system that was great, but it was a house of cards. It was the second you did something wrong, you were out of the school, like whatever, like it's so silly, and I still remember these things that happened to me that I felt like weren't emotionally healthy and weren't done it coming from a true emotionally healthy way, and it messes with you a little bit, and then you feel it yourself also. If you jump too fast or you go the other way, how do you find that balance? So that's really what 26 and 34 teaches us, and it teaches us through probably like my favorite thing, and I think this is such a good thing to go into Yantif with, because like we have all these fears, like Yamim Noram are like known as like Nora is obviously not scary. Nora is like awe, like awesome, but we think of it as like scary, right? There's a whether you like it or not, I mean, unless you daven here, like I shouldn't say that, but like we feel like there's like this dark covering. It's like, oh, could it just be sukkahs? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I always joke and I quote from Italfeld a lot because like I watch her stories, but she's always like, Tisha B'Av, like I just need it to be over. Yom Kippur, I just need it to be over. And that's probably how most of us feel. And it's because we don't know how to come to Yantiv in a very emotionally healthy way and what is actually happening in Rosh Hashanah. So I think that what we want to do now in terms of troubleshooting is we want to deal with attacking Tanya with love, with joy, and with simcha. Because if you don't, then you could be like, halacha, this and that, and then you won't, the whole idea is to take your emotions and make them congruent with your intellect. So if you're not doing it in a healthy way, then it's not healthy. So how do we get to that? So 26 to 34 talks about joy, talks about simcha. So what do we know about simcha when it comes to like doing mitzvos and like Yiddishkeit? Like what's our like go-to like pasuk that we find, right? Mitzvah gadol yos b'simcha, right? If you Hashem b'simcha, right? Tachas shalo avadati b'simcha, because you didn't do the mitzvahs, but like I did the mitzvahs, but if you didn't do a simcha, it doesn't count. What does that mean? Like what is simcha? It's almost like simcha's like you know, like when you go to Israel and you have to like put the two-piece thing on, the adapter. Like you have to take everything and you have to put the adapter of simcha onto it. And honestly, I'm trying really, really hard in my personal life to do things with simcha, but I know that when I do things with simcha, it's just 100 times better. It's like you could do it, but you could do it with simcha. Like you could make Shabbos, but you could make Shabbos with simcha. And if that means like blasting music or pouring yourself a l'chaim before you start cooking, or like just approaching it in a way of like, yes, making lists and feeling more organized. Anything that you do with simcha automatically just becomes better. And it's like, but like, I don't always want to tap into my simcha because like I'm angry or in a bad mood or whatever, I'm sad, whatever. So what 26 to 34 teaches us how to put everything in the lens of simcha, and that's really the whole way to like troubleshoot. If you have any problem, just go back to simcha. Right? If the ice machine's not working, go back to simcha, right? You forgot to turn off Shabbos mode, go back to simcha. The first week, we thought my fridge was broken. I'm so embarrassed on my town appliance because I made them send down 3 people. We forgot to take it off Shabbos mode. And we were like, okay, fine. So it's like, I was so angry. I was like, I just want this freezer and it's already broken and it's like, it was so silly. It was like, just hold the button down for 3 seconds, 2 buttons, and then it's over, right? Okay, so now we want to deal, there's negative emotions that come to derail us. So imagine you're like on a train. You're like, I'm on the Tanya train. I got this. Everything is smooth sailing. And all of a sudden, things are coming to derail me, and I want to stop it. So in chapter 26, it starts off with a story of a mashal of a wrestler. I'm always like, I didn't know that like wrestlers were a thing back then. Like I grew up, my grandfather watched wrestling. I don't know if anybody had that ever. Like my grandparents were like, were your grandparents like that or no? A family member, like I was like, wrestling is such a weird thing. Like, is it real? Is it fake? Right. I know. I'm like, my grandpa was like a Holocaust survivor, stockbroker, and he would like drop everything for a wrestling match. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's fake. Like, I feel like it is, right? So anyway, in Tanya, there's a mashal of a wrestler who was the best wrestler out there. He was the strongest. He had the most skilled and everything. And really, technically, he should win every single match. That's what it's called. I'm like, what's it called when they play? Match, right? He should win every match. But on this particular day, he was in a bad mood. And I don't know, he missed his coffee. He spilled his coffee. He missed the bus, whatever it was. Or somebody else in the family missed the bus and ruined it for everybody, right? You know those mornings, right? And he went in a bad mood. And what happened? He lost. But what do you mean? He has all the skills. He benches 400 pounds. He's able to do all this stuff. Why did that happen? He was superior. Why did he lose? Because of his mood. So it's like almost like a little telltale sign of like, really, if you put everything with the right lens on, you could accomplish anything. But more than that, where does simcha, what's the opposite of simcha? Sadness, right? So sadness is what? Sadness is like the breaking down of parts. When things are working well, they're wholesome, I love that word. We were just talking about it. Like, it's such a like good shidduch word. And they're very wholesome family. Like, what does that mean, wholesome? But like, if it means that there's joy in the house, then I'll take that. Like wholesome. So this idea where you have to attack the nefesh habahamis. You want your nefesh halukis to rule. You have to watch out for the punches of the nefesh habahamis. How are you going to do that? You're going to do that with coming up with putting everything with the focus and with the lens of simcha, of joy. Now, whether it's wrestling, whether it's serving Hashem, you have to go about it in a good mood. Like, I think about this sometimes when I'm like standing in the kitchen, like Erev Shabbos, like, or whatever, or even on Shabbos, or after the table's a mess, or after you have to clean up, or whatever it is, and it's like, I could be so, you know the lines. You guys are such messes. Why do I even have closets? Why did I buy this toy? You don't even play with it. I don't know how anybody else cleans up, but for me, cleaning up is taking a garbage bag and just throwing everything out. Like, don't come to my house. Like, bulk pickup will be there and all my stuff will be out. That's how I clean up, and that's because I'm coming from it in a sign of, like, anger. And then I'm like, 1 second, like, this house messy means, like, I have kids here. Like, like, I think about this all the time. My parents were married for 14 years before they had kids. And, like, it's when I would like come into their house and they would like have toys out for the kids. I'm like, oh, we have to clean up. And my father would like stop me and be like, Faigy, the kids are here. This is exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And I'm like, I'm coming at it from anger and he's coming at it from simcha. Look at this house, it's filled with simcha. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I have to be happy. Now the problem is,
it's a choice that someone needs to choose.
Right.
And just because they choose it doesn't mean that it's there automatically. They have to choose to put on that lens.
Right. You have to choose, because if not, what ends up happening is you're just like, it's like, you gave that example with the escalator, like you're falling backwards. Like if you're not choosing simcha, you're falling backwards. So the problem is, though, in our generation, and I think this is something that we're seeing in the world itself, is that happiness became this like concept that like we idolize. Like if it makes me happy, I do it. Right? Like, not even if it makes sense, but if it just makes me happy. Hi. Come, don't worry. No, better late than ever. Don't worry. We're literally just getting started because we were doing like a lot of Chazar. Oh, and also you're an E student. It's fine. You have all the vocabulary words. You know it. We give out marks in this class. There's no test, but we definitely know who's listening. No, I'm kidding. The idea where happiness became idolized, like I'm going to do this because it makes me happy. I'll give you an example. It's funny. I work for the Board of Ed, and it's like, I always say it's like very archaic. Like you walk in there, it's the office, like Dunder Mifflin, like Scott, like papers, fax machines, like the old school cubicles, everything. And like we recently had this like professional development, and they were like talking about like PTO, like paid time off, right? And I'm like, we never discuss this. It's like you have your days and you have off Christmas break, you have off, President's Week, you have off the summer. It was never like a discussion. And then like we had this professional development. I'm like, I know times are changing because they're like, everybody has like a nice amount of days off. Like we were never told to take days off. And they're like, do what you need to do with your family and your time off. I'm like, for real? Like you're telling us that we have some time for ourselves, that we're not just slaves to this job? It was always that concept. You see that in the workforce and in life in general, that people are okay with being happier. Mindfulness, we now do mindfulness every Monday. I'm like, mindfulness? Like I'm coming, it's like the most archaic place. Like how all of a sudden, I'm like, they're meditating, they're learning Tanya, what it is. The world in general as a whole is starting to come more to like do things that make you feel good. You know what I mean? Like baby boomers, like our parents' generation, we're not like that.
They were in survival mode.
They were in survival mode, right? They were very much like you go to your work, you clock in, you clock out, you come home to a pot chicken like on the table. Now it's like if pizza works for you, pizza works for me. Like it's Erev Yontif, do what you need to do, right? So almost like joy and happiness became this thing that we almost feel like we have to serve itself. So there's a little bit of a problem where if you idolize happiness just for the fact to make you happy and not connect it back to Hashem, that's like just like a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's just like, I'm going to do what's good for me. Like, I'm trying to think of another example.
That's not really happiness.
That's not really happiness, right?
That's convenience.
It's convenience, right? This is what works for me, right? Like, this is what makes me happy,
good.
right?
I don't have to go out of my comfort zone. Like, that
Right.
has nothing to do with happiness.
It has nothing to do with happiness, and it's a very misconstrued view of like what makes you happy. And I think that like we say, if it makes you happy, you do it. Gesundheit, like that's what my mother always says, makes you happy. But I'm like, really? It's so passive aggressive. You do you, right? But like in our job, like joy is very important. But like with everything you do, the second you say that that's important because of its importance, you basically are doing avodah zarah. It's like if I'm doing this for my own happiness and not for Hashem's happiness, it's avodah zarah. If I'm doing, like, think about like when you're stressed, right? Like, I think about this a lot. Like, I'm so stressed. I'm like, I have to, whatever. My daughter had something on her foot and I wasn't sure if it was cellulitis. And I'm like, I need to get the medicine. And it was like, I had parent orientation and I also had Rabbi Yossi Shir and I need to, whatever. I called the doctor, called the medicine. They weren't answering. I drove there. They weren't open. It was closed. And I was just like, in the car. And I'm like, I'm trying to get my kid this medicine. And I'm so angry that the store is closed and then I can't get to it. And I don't want to drive to the 24-hour CVS on Mill Road because it's 45 minutes from my house. You know that CVS, that's 24 hours. No, you've been there, right? No, you haven't been there. I'm like, really, we need to start something like, someone needs to have like a medicine gemach. That like when pharmacies are closed. What? It's illegal. Okay, fine. No, okay, so it's illegal. We won't do that. Okay. I'll keep it amongst us. But like really, so I'm like sitting in the car and I'm like, I need that medicine. And I'm like, what do you need? I'm like, because she needs the medicine. And he's like, the second you start thinking that she only needs the medicine because you know, and I think I'm a doctor because my father's a doctor, so I'm like, oh, it's cellulitis. I can diagnose any skin disease, whatever. And I'm like, she needs the medicine. And it's like, 1 second. It's going down. If the store is closed, then it's okay because that means that I can get the medicine tomorrow and she probably doesn't need the medicine tonight. So just relax. I drew like a pen around the thing. And I know, but the second I give it credence that it's real, that's kind of idol worship. It's important because it's important. Homework. Everybody has to do their homework. Nothing's going to happen if you don't do your homework. Sorry, teachers. Like, don't listen. Like, nothing's going to happen. But homework is homework. It's important, right? They have to get a good mark. The science fair. Go give me a tri-board. I don't want to ever have to do anything with a tri-board. But, like, the second you start thinking it's all about the tri-board and it's all about the science lab and it's all about it, you're losing focus. You're stopping yourself from really connecting to Hashem. So it's a point where we have become worshiping joy and happiness as a thing in itself, and not fully connecting it back to Hashem.
It's a tool.
It's a tool. It's a tool. But the second that we think that that's the be-all, end-all, right, it has to be a tool. It has to be a tool as a, like we said, bittul. Bittul's be the tool. It has to be a tool. Otherwise, it's avodah zarah. So anything that you're thinking, I'm saying, let's say like, in terms of Yantiv, and in terms of preparation, in terms of it, the second you misalign it and forget to attach Hashem to it, that's where you go off, and that's where you worship idols. You're like, I don't worship idols, but yeah, you do. If you worship all your clothing without connecting it to Hashem and to the shul, then you're worshiping idols. You know, so just always remember to align it. So what is this joy? So why we need joy to activate everything that happened in the past 25 chapters. We said all these amazing things about our neshama, all these amazing things about we have the ability to meditate, and we have spiritual and adrenaline, we have all this stuff, but if we don't have joy to activate it, then we're in trouble. So now what do we need joy for? So what's the opposite of joy? Sadness, right? Where does sadness come from? Let's talk about physical sadness. There's physical sadness and then there's spiritual sadness. Where does physical sadness come from? Very, very basic.
It's not the lack of happiness?
More than that. What is sadness? What does physical sadness come from? A heaviness. From what?
Like
What is
outside factors?
outside factors? Yeah, like physical, like be very straight up. What could make you sad?
A friend, a family member, like I don't know, stress, a kid.
Stress, kids.
It's like something that doesn't make you feel good.
Something that doesn't make you feel good. Like basic, at the base root of all our physical problems, it's like, we say it in Hebrew, Banai Chai Mizonai, right? Like Banai is our children, right? Family members. Mizona is our food and our money and our parnasa. And material problems are, and health issues, chayai, right? Our medical health, our health issues, our money issues, and our family issues, okay? That's really, what? Those are the stressors, right? Like all the articles, like in the Mishpacha and the Bina and the Ami, like on Yantif, is like, how would you deal with family members on Yantif? Who gets the big room? Who gets the little room? Who gets the room with 2 beds? Who gets the one with the bathroom attached to it, right? Like that's all your families. Financial, right? Not having enough money to be able to make Yantif and things like that. And then also health issues. Like God forbid, if anybody's struggling with their health, those are real physical issues. Spiritual issues are different stuff. Spiritual issues are like guilt, not being able to connect to do tshuva, not necessarily finding Hashem, but we're going to do that next week. What we'll focus on is what brings us sadness on a physical level. So spiritual problems are a different story. 99% of our problems are, guess what? physical problems. And that's why, by the way, Tanya addresses those physical problems right away. They're like, okay, let's help you with the physical problems. Because the physical problems, even though they're superficial, they could seem superficial, they have a very big effect on you. So we get affected by those issues. Family issues, mental issues, financial issues, health issues, right? And how do we deal with our problems? A way for us to rise up from our problems is really to go back to all the way in the beginning and remember what?
We're not in charge.
That we're not in charge, and kikarve lacha. It's not so hard. Remember we said this, I think it was in chapter 16. We said everything is doable. Like, you could be stressed out, and like, do you ever have these conversations with your husband? Like, oh, you're catching, right? And he's like, okay, so call the teacher. And you're like, yeah, but it's not so easy just to call the teacher. And it's like, it's a much bigger problem. And he's like, so then call the friend's mother. And I'm like, stop answering. Like, I just want to, like, vent, right? Okay, so don't do that to your husbands, because I realize that's what friends are for, or Tanya is for. But like, really, our hardships, right? We talk about. We never really want to troubleshoot it. We just want to talk about it. We just want to catch about it. I have to like work on this. I have a friend's chat that just changed it to the venting club, and I was like, no, we can't be venters, because if you're venting not to change anything, then you're not even trying to find the joy. That's me saying I'm not even trying to put on glasses that are clear that will give me some joy. If I'm just in my zone, I'm in my zone. I don't want to be there. So we have to understand, though, that we will have difficulties in life, right? And we're supposed to, by the way, be Makayim, like we're supposed to accept Yisurim. You know where we learn this from? There's like, there's a Gemara that says, Kishem Shavarchem al ha, where's my Rebbetzin over here? Varchem al ha. Just like you say, you thank Hashem for the good, you also have to thank Hashem for the bad. And what's the ultimate example? When somebody is niftar, what do we say? Baruch Dayan Emes, right? Like, what? Baruch Dayan Emes? Like, this person just left. No, but Baruch Dayan Emes. Just like you bless on the good, you also have to bless on the bad. You bench Gomo, you bench when somebody dies, right? You have to say these things. So basically, we don't even need Tanya to come teach us that. The Talmud tells us you have to bless Hashem. You have to thank Hashem even when things are bad. Now, we don't ask, by the way, for troubles. We really don't. David HaMelech was one who had a lot of troubles. I think that there's like some point, I'm trying to remember, like back in Navi class, that David HaMelech, he was almost like a target. Like he had Yisurim coming left and right. Who else had like that? Somebody had like 10 tests. Avram, Avram, right? Avram had 10 nisyonos, right? And he was able to, but we don't ask for nisyonos. We even have this like after like the brachos, we have what? Loli de nisayon. Thank you. Right. So we say like, Hashem, don't put us in a place of loli de nisayon. Sometimes I'm not sure if I get to that paragraph. Like sometimes I just do brachos. But if I get there, I'm like, this is such a powerful tefillah. Like Hashem, don't put me in a nisayon, right? But Avram Avinu, he had all these tests, but somehow he wasn't bothered by it. But we're not talking about big, huge, like kivshan ha'ish, Holocaust problems that people have. We're talking about everyday money problems, everyday health issues, doctor's appointments, visits, like orthodontists, whatever you're busy with, all these little problems. How do I deal with those in I almost say like in a geula mindset, in a joyful mindset? How do I do that? So the fact that we make a bracha on the bad things teaches us already that we have to accept all of it. But how do I do it? And by the way, the Gemara teaches us, this is what you have to do. Chassidus teaches us why. So it's like a very key thing to know that you guys are in on something that not necessarily everybody is. Like, or I definitely was until like a few weeks ago. Like, that impulse control is a great thing. Control yourself, accept the bad, accept Yisurim, Baruch Dayan Emes, right? But why? And that's really what Tanya teaches us. Chassidus in general teaches us why we're doing it joyfully. Okay, so this is like a little bit of a deep concept. And just like bear with me, because like I even as I'm saying it, I'm like, I don't know why I'm even zocha to say these things, but we know that there's this concept with Hashem's names, right? The names of Hashem. I think that we're going to be saying it like a million times on Yom Kippur, and hopefully we'll have another class before Yom Kippur. But like we say Hashem, Hashem, Kel, Racham, Chanan, right? There's this concept about Shemas of Hashem, which like I really like. I'm saying I don't even feel worthy speaking about it, but I think I grasp this concept enough to explain it to you. But you take Hashem's name. The ultimate of Hashem's name is, Hashem has many names. What's Hashem's name? That Yud Kei Vav Kei, right? So we have Yud, Hey, which is the first part of the name, and then we have Vav Hey, okay, which is the second part of the name. Now, if you learn anything about the letters of Hashem, the way that you line things up, like, I don't know if you've ever seen this, like, I see it sometimes. Well, first of all, I know it. We have it in shul. Like, though, right? Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi. Somebody they like stretch out the hay and then put Hashem's name in it. Like, Sfardim love these. They have like cards with Hashem's name and like hamsas, and they stick it in their like baby strollers everywhere, and they hang it from their mobile. Right? Like, what are these things? These names of Hashem, like a kameya. Like, I never really fully understood it. But obviously, these divine names. By the way, I'm like scarred as a kid from like divine names from Hashem because of like sota. Like, do you remember when we learned about Sota? Like, they take Hashem's name and they like put it in a drink and they erase Hashem's name. And I'm like, oh, this lady's so bad. Like, I was like always so scared by that. Like, no? Anybody else, or is this just me? Like,
My daughter learned about it last year and she called me crying out.
it's very freaky. Right? And then she blows up from the inside out. Like, I know. It's very scary.
That was the most scarring class I've ever been.
Right.
Okay, we need to relearn Sota.
Obviously.
I know. That one and Ben Soromora. Right? Like, he was 13 and a half and then he went and he took like, I don't know. This is like just like...
Spoke about it.
Yes.
Did he?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Find me that share. I need to listen to that. I was on Shabbos. Okay, we need to get Yochanan Gordon on it. He writes up this year. Yeah? Okay, I'll ask. Okay, so I need to learn more about it. Okay, so Hashem's name. So the most, like, obviously Hashem's name that represents Hayahoveh V'yeh is Yud Kei Vav Kei. So if you align it, almost in like Chinese write from top to bottom, you know that? If you take, I know that from my owner's manual of my refrigerator. So you take the Yud, Hey, then Vav, and then a Hey on the bottom. That's the way that energy flows into this world, okay? So there are dimensions and layers to this world. Not that I understand what I'm saying, but I think as I say it, and if you grasp it, just like join along, okay? Everything starts with an akuda from above, okay? So almost like a dot, okay? Which is, by the way, what's that dot represented? What's that letter that represents it? A yud, right? So a yud is divine energy. It starts from above. It's also the yud is floating. The yud is not here on this world. It comes from somewhere higher, okay? So it's this dot. It's this inspiration. It's Hashem making his mark in this world. Then it transcends from Yud into the next letter, which is Hey. Hey represents, by the way, this physical world, because there's many different reasons why Hey does, but Hey, there's three sides to Hey. So there's like one line, this I learned from Danielle Katz, that there's one line like this, and then the bottom part of the Hey is really depth. This represents height, width, and depth, and that's why this world is three-dimensional. We don't live in a 2D world, we live in a 3D world, right? We don't need those cool glasses that have like red and blue that come from the back of the cereal box, which nobody has anymore, right? Kids these days, they will not know. They were so fun. You're like, oh, it's popping out. This whole world is popping out, right? Everything is popping out, right? This is a three-dimensional world represented in Hey. Hey, by the way, represents femininity, where Yud represents masculinity. Think about it just for a second. Male, right? They give, and it's just a teeny little point, but it has all the DNA. That's everything. And then the woman catches it, Hey, in the womb. So this world is kind of like that. So Hey is expansion. So Yud is teeny, a little drop, but it contains everything, and Hey is the expansion of it. Then what's the next letter? Vav. And what is a Vav? Vav in Hebrew is a connecting word, right? Faigy ve malki, right? What is ve? And with, right? It's actually the vav and vav is a hook. Vav actually looks like a hook, right? Like a coat, like a hanging hook. So that's kind of like the conduit where it comes down. It's like the funnel. And then one more time, the last letter is Hey, which is the full expansion, which is down here. That's why sometimes when you see Yod Kei Vav Kei and you see it like in these like Sephardi things, you'll see the last Hey is always spread out. Because that's the full expansion. That's this world. So it starts out and above and expands, and then it comes down and travels down to this world, and then it expands even more to the last Hey. That's Yud, Hey, and then the last one is Vav and Hey. So the Yud and the Hey, the first one, is the upper realms, and then as it comes down to this world, it comes down in Vav and Hey. Okay? So we have upper world, spiritual problems, and then we have down here, physical problems. So we said what we're going to discuss today is the physical problems. So the two worlds, the Yud and the Hey that's up there, and the Vav and the Hey that's down here, are represented in Zohar, these words, they're Aramaic words, as, and if you listen to any of Rabbi Yossi's classes, you've definitely heard these words, Olam, the two Olamos, right? There's two worlds. There's the revealed world, which is down here, which is Olam Diskalia. Diskalia is Diskalia, well, I'm trying to figure out what the shorish is. It's revealed. It means like revealed. As opposed to Alma Diskasia, which is hidden. Sorry, I still have fruit flies. What?
Like the sky is the
Right. It's more like it's revealed, like Hester, right? So we have the Alma Diskaya, which is the covered, which is the hidden world. And then this world down over here is the Alma Diskaya, which is the revealed world. And those are the lower two. That's the Vav and the Hey. Okay, so why am I telling you all these Kabbalistic words? What is this meaning? What is it hidden? What's revealed? So before we get into it, I'm just literally going to ask you, like, what do you know about these two worlds?
That they're parallel.
They're parallel. That means that whatever's happening over here happens down here. And also vice versa. Things that happen here have effects up there. Also, by the way, can I take one break a second? I remember that we said this last week after class, but not recorded, that when you do something in this world, even though it feels like for you, Mary, help me remember this, even though for you it feels like 1 second, it concretizes in the world forever. So it's like if you, if you, let's say you control yourself, right, for 6 hours or whatever, 5 hours to wait for Milchik's Fleishik, you think that like, oh, it was nothing. I controlled myself and I'm so proud of myself, but you have no idea what worlds it built in the next world. And you lose your patience on your mother, your spouse, your child for 1 second, and you're like, oh, it's 1 second, they're resilient, right? I always say this, like after a bad morning, I'm like, kids are resilient. Like I used to ruminate about it all day, and then I'm like, oh, now I take the higher ground, and I'm like, whatever, it's nothing, they'll forget it. But really, they don't. Like, yes, they do, and they move on with their day, and it helps build character, but bottom line, whatever you did is always there. In Hashem's world, it stays there forever. So that's another way, going back to the tools of Tanya, to realize when you're about to do something, you're like, oh, I'm about to do this and it's going to disconnect me or connect me to Hashem, even though for right now it only feels like 1 second, but in Hashem's world, it's forever.
Just expands your viewpoint of your actions.
Right. It's like, I notice it, like one of my kids in particular is like super annoying, and I'm just like, go away, right? Like, and I'm on my phone, I'm like doing a return, an online return, printing out labels, tape, whatever, and she's like, mommy. I'm like, what? And then I'm like, I know she's gonna forget it, but then I think for 1 second, oh my God, imagine like that what was always ringing in her ear. Like, when you're in like a hospital and you hear beeping all the time, and you're like, yeah, I don't hear it anymore, it's called like alarm fatigue. But what if you always heard it? Like if you always heard that what, or like stop it, or go to bed, or whatever, and it's almost like scaring me. It's like imagine they were actually real, and they are. So that's something just to remember for last week, but also think about it for now. Anything that's in the spiritual world is affected down here, and the things that you do affects the upper worlds, and it just flips back and forth. So this idea is when we relate to reality, we're very, very sensitive to the physical stuff because we're physical, right? So let's say like, it's hard to describe spirituality. Think about how many weeks we had to spend to describe the neshama. But we could describe our physical body in a second, right? Because this is much more real. The vav and the hey is much more real here. Now, as things come down from the spiritual world into the physical world, it's almost like translation. So like, it's easy to think about it as Chinese, okay? Next time you see, I don't even know what the Chinese alphabet's called. Like, it's called something, the way that they write it, like this way, I forgot. Characters, right? Like I'm like cuneiform. Is that the word? Like, you know what I mean? Like what?
Hieroglyphics.
Hieroglyphics, right? Hieroglyphs. It's something, right? Like the Egyptians like actually drew pictures for their letters. Like this is an A, right? Like and it was like a person walking to the store. So the Chinese, right? It's up. It's from top to bottom. So as it unfolds, different layers and the worlds are opening, right? So everything comes from Hashem. So if everything comes from Hashem, then guess what? Everything is good. Okay, so if you don't even want to get to today, Thursday afternoon, that my painter showed up today when I've been waiting for them for a month and I have to cook crayons, like everything really is good. So like I should just like not get mad at them and not like say something to them and just be like, the reason they're here is good. Because if you remember all the way back up on the top at the Yud, everything already there was good. It just is hidden. So then what we start to realize is as it travels down into this world, there are different layers of good. Right? So let's see like what's good for a little kid? What's good for a 5-year-old? Lollipops. Even more. Like swing sets, right? Like going to the park, right? These things are so good in their eyes, right? I always think about this. My Mel's grandmother, she gives, like for birthday presents, she gives bonds. Do anybody know what bonds are? Like I don't even know if they use them. Not anymore, right? Is it an over what?
Oh, bond, yeah.
Bonds? No, bonds. Like a money. Stock bonds, right? Bonds. Right. Oh, those bonds. Oh, that what you think of? No, bonds, like stock bonds. I was like, Bobby Bella, what is this? Like, what do I do with this? Hold on to it. When you're 50 years old, it'll be worth $2,000. I'm like, give me $5 right now, and I'll be happier than that, right? But so that means that there's different layers of good. Like, I always think like past the present is like the number one worst thing of a party. It's amazing, but like it messes with the kids' minds. It's like, oh, should I get the next one? Right? You know, you see the music slowing down, you know it's up to the last one, so you're like, you know you're gonna get the best one. But all the layers and layers and layers are just to get to the deepest, most inside good thing. So yes, you can get what are things that we put in past the present? I don't even know if people still do it. It was like the ultimate bus mitzvah game when I was a kid. Right, like bracelets or like a Chinese jump rope is like one of the things, or a silly putty. But like if you just wait deep inside, there's a Barbie dream house in there. But you just want that first layer. So the kids are all fighting over who gets the first one, the second one, the third one. And I'm like, guys, there's something so much bigger in there. There's a bond in there that when you're 60 will be worth whatever. Wait, so why don't bonds don't work anymore? Shoot, I have so many.
No, they do. No, they do. But people don't buy them anymore.
People don't buy them anymore.
Like 10 years ago.
Oh.
My husband's grandparents also used to buy them. And I have like 5. Like when I first had he's like, cash it could be like $50,000. Like, but spend your money wisely. And then he's like, oh, I found the kids also. He's like, we're not going to cash those. Like, because
we'll save them. Right.
I'm like, oh, so I should cash mine. But it was funny. And like, I'm like, where are all yours? He's like, oh, hi, we have a house. But it was very funny.
Right, I know, but I was like,
he came in with like 30 bonds, like,
I know.
we're married, but it was archaic to me. It was like
so archaic.
My kids have double because they got from his grandfather, my in-laws. And it happens to have just come up this week. He found the bonds.
I found the bonds also. It's in my expanding folder with my kids' passports and whatever. Also, I found an old folder and I looked at it. I'm like, what are these?
Right. He used to, and he's like, they say my name on it. I'm like, what is that?
It's the strangest thing. And it's worth it. Right.
Okay, I'm like, no, I'm putting it away.
Very away. Right. So it's like there's good, there's Chinese jump ropes and silly putty and bracelets, but then there's something so much bigger. There's bonds, but we don't always see it. So like for little kids, what makes them happy, I think about this all the time with my baby. Like I bought him a new toy. And then it's like, I'm like, here's the toy. And he's like ripping off the tape from the box. I'm like, that brings you joy. But do you know that there's a toy that if you put batteries in, it makes noise and it's even better? And you're like, yeah, but I'm just happy with this box and there's lots of tape and stickers on it and like what? So it's like the layers of joy that we see is this world, is the Vav and the Hey. And it's very, very, it's simple, but it's here. But I'm telling you that there's a deeper level. Yeah, but I have to wait 50 years. But that's going to bring you even greater joy. So what this concept, this name of Hashem teaches us is that there's joy and then there's even greater joy, but sometimes that joy is covered with many years dusting off. He's clearly not joyful, right? I'm not sure if he needs to take a nap or not. So let's say the 5-year-old at the birthday party that's so excited for her Barbie dream house doesn't want Bobby Bella's bonds, but I'm trying to teach her that there is a deeper level of joy, and that's with a spiritual realm of joy. So now here's the thing. If everything is good from up above, then there's no bad. And really there's no suffering. So we can say this very easily now, but when you're in the moment, it takes practice. But you clean lady.
Meditation is good because it gets you into that mindset.
Right. That's why meditation is good. So you could say my cleaning lady didn't show up today, right? That's really, really bad. It's Erev Yontif. She's here. I'm just saying theoretically, if she didn't show up, right? That would be very bad. But if it comes down from the pipeline, it takes time to be translated. Think of it as literally as Chinese. It needs to be translated. And if it's not translated, then it looks like pain and it looks like suffering and it looks bad. But that's just because you're lost in translation or you're stuck at a higher level and you can't fully see it. So the idea is to because we experience things on the highest level. We want to experience the highest level, but the highest level is not relatable. Right? That concept we always say, Hashem. We want Hashem in our life every single day. But if we get him every single day, then we're going to get used to it. So Hashem hides himself in the Olam In the upper world, in the spiritual world, he hides himself. So what do we have to do? We have to uncover it because we have to translate it. So it's like, okay, the clean lady didn't show up today. Okay, Google Translate. What does that mean? Tanya Translate. We should have like an app that like translate what that evil, bad thing that looks like it's very bad. How do I translate it into Hasidus? How do I understand it? How do I find the good? Sometimes I have this with like people. I'm like, why are you always so happy? Like, stop always being so happy. Like, you don't always have to be happy. Like, you could be... No, you always have to be happy. Otherwise, you will not translate things correctly. And if you don't have the translation, then you're going to be filled with suffering, with health issues and family issues and money issues. You're going to struggle with it. And that's what we go daven for. That's what we ask Hashem for in Rosh Hashanah. And it's like, so in a way, instead of asking for things, all you have to do is just ask Hashem, ask yourself to translate it. And say, how do I take that difficulty, that suffering, that trouble, that thing that doesn't let me connect to you? How do I understand it? How do I develop it? So when you're receiving something from Hashem that looks like a patch, or it looks like rebuke, or it looks like something bad, what is it? It's really just not translated. It's just really not fully understood. So we beg Hashem, translate it, explain it, or practice, use your tools. So how could I use my tools to do that?
How do you remember? Like, I don't remember.
How do you remember? Right.
So day to day, it could be a little harder unless you are in the mindset. But like, you're talking about like pain, like big pain, a lot of times it's easier to
So,
process it.
right, big pain is, by the way, big pain is so much easier to understand. Like, I missed the train and then it was 9/11. Okay, fine, I see Hashem in it. What if I missed the train and I came late to work and I lost my job? Like, what does that mean? Okay, hopefully that won't happen. But the idea is that you're telling me that if I'm able to find good, but like, I can only find so much good. I can't find good in everything. No, I'm telling you, find good in everything. And then it's like, the little things and the hidden things are so much harder. The super hidden things, like I would say, like you're saying, it's not so hard. But the simple, everyday things, it's such a practice. It's like a real practice. That's when you go back to 16, 17 and say, slowly meditate till you find Hashem. But the question really you have to ask yourself is, do I want to live an easy, enjoyable, pleasurable, good life?
Gula mindset, that's basically what it is.
Right. So it's like, I want to live.
It sounds kitschy when you say gula mindset, but this is exactly what it is. It's whether you're living those or gula.
Right. Like, where are you living? Like, when I'm in that venting mode and they're like, everyone's giving you like ways to solve the problem, I'm like, I don't want to hear. Because I just want to vent. But then that's katnus. That's smallness. That's saying, I only want to live here in this physical world. What if I'm forgetting the first two letters? What if I'm forgetting where everything originally came from? The second I plug into upstairs, I don't have to worry. It will just flow. The problem is when you're doing steps 4, when you're getting to the hey, and then to the vav, then you jump up to the yud, then you come back to the hey, and you get confused. But if you recognize that it flows, and there's a system, and there's a pattern, that's really the thing that will get you through it. And I think that it's important for us to know that if you want to just live down here in the vav and the hay, you can have a very pleasant life. You really could. You could do grocery orders online, and you could spend time with your kids, and you could, take vacations, and you could build a house, and you could go to Cork and Slice with your friends, and you could do whatever you need to do. But that's just a good, easy, pleasurable life. That is not going to connect. Right. That's fake simcha, because that's me just saying I want an easy life. Or do you want to live a life closest to Hashem? So anybody who's here obviously chose, is it the latter? Is this the latter means the second one? Like, I never know. I never know. It's like, choose the latter. I'm like, the latter? Like, I never got that one. But like, the second one, anybody who's here is here for that, right? Because like, I'm taking time out of your morning. It's Erev Yontif. I could be here all day because they're painting my kitchen. So like, it's fine. But like, you took time out of your day because you want to have closeness to Hashem. There's a reason. There's a reason that you're here. There's a reason that you're learning this. There's a reason that you're going into Rosh Hashanah with this. So that means that you chose a life to be close to Hashem. And the opposite would just be, I just want to find joy in the Vav and the Hay. But you must bring it back. You have to choose the latter, somebody said. You must, and you'll remember this now, that everything that you're telling me is, everything that you're giving me is coming from a higher source. It's coming from a better place. And that is something that I want. When we say, I want to live a joyful life, I want to live a joyful life with Hashem. Because the other way of doing it is, it's easy. It's coasting. It's like, have you ever gotten into a place where you're like, okay, now I'm comfortable. Now I'm good. The second you start to feel comfortable, what happens?
It makes you resilient, and you're able to roll with the punches in life.
Right.
That's what.
It's such a cool thing. I know.
Yeah.
It's a
That's
very,
what
it's
we're
a
here
very,
for, going through this world.
right. It's a very cool thing. I'll just say, like, personally, this is something, I mean, obviously this is very personal to me, but like, I've worked in the same office for like 12 years, whatever. There was a break during COVID, and when I had a baby, I was not in the office. I came back to the office recently, and I'm like, with 3 years of like Hasidus and Tanya, like, and tools in my backpack, I like walk in like on the first day of like work, and I'm like, this is going to be so different. This is not the same office that I walked into 2.5 years ago. It's not. It's different. I have new glasses. I actually got LASIK. But like, I have new vision and new way to approach things. And the more you practice it, the better you'll be. You'll wake up one morning and you'll be like, I am not the same person I was yesterday. And it's because you connected it all the way back. And it's like, I am choosing to live a life with Hashem. I know there's struggles, and I know there's Yom Kippurs, and I know that there's Holocaust, and I know that there's busing issues, and there's, what's it called? A recession, whatever it is. Like, it's really bad, right? I know all this stuff. I'm like having like a speech issue today. What's it called? Like when you can't get the words out. Recall. But everything that we're saying is that we think that is good in this world. The silly putties and the Chinese jump ropes and the simple, easy things are just finding pleasure in the lower worlds. But if I want to take it one step deeper and really, really connect to Hashem, I need to do it with joy, but not fake joy, not little joy, not Barbie dream houses, but like bonds, but like big, big, big stuff. And that's how we connect back to Hashem. And that's, by the way, like, we say, Hashem, don't bring me into Nisayon because I don't want to fall there. But let's say I do find myself there, go find Hashem there. In that Nisayon, go find Hashem. And the more you do it.
Do that though.
So
it's a very lofty concept to
it is.
Think about it and try to connect. But how do you talk to yourself? You internalize? Like, what do you do?
So you want to know what I really do? Like, sometimes I literally, like, I say, like, I fall to the floor. You know those toys, and I give this example a lot. I don't think they even have them. They're probably back with whatever silly putty, those toys. It was like a little square that you would like squeeze it, like the man would like fall, like crumble. Do you know what I'm talking about? It had like, oh shoot. It's like, I have to get one of them. I'm gonna look online. I don't even know what it's called. It's like a collapsible man. It's like he's standing and then you squeeze the bottom button and it's like just strings in it. Oh, nobody knows what I'm talking about. Okay, it's like a puppet. It's like a puppet, like a man. Okay, fine. I would literally, like, you could be standing at one moment and you have it all together, and then you have all this like outside, external, physical, painful stimuli like hitting you, like literally like you're a target. Like, I'm Avram Avinu right now, and I have to sacrifice my son, and I have to go into the Kivshon Nation, I have to do this, and it's like, what am I going to do? So I could fall to the floor, and I've definitely done that. I'll be standing in the kitchen, I'll just like sit. Okay, I also do yoga, so my kids don't think it's so weird, but like sometimes I'm like, I cannot handle something. Find a way to cope through it for 1 minute and let your brain roll through the motions. Imagine the divine name of Hashem. Yud, and then a Hey. I know we're supposed to say Yud K, right? Vav K, right? You're supposed to just imagine that everything that's happening to me and coming to me is layers and layers and layers, and it comes from somewhere higher, and it's not translated. Let me translate it. Say it. I know, it's crazy. The more you do it, I did it last night. For me, I have so much stress in the car because I sit in the car all day with traffic and whatever. And yesterday, after driving to Brooklyn and driving back and orientations and whatever, I don't know what they do to us. Like, I really don't know why they do this to us. Go to orientation on 7:30, drive to Rockaway, like on a weeknight, and it's whatever. I have to go to orientation and have to go to the pharmacy. My gut feeling would be like, why I'm in the car? I'm missing orientation and the pharmacy was closed, and then I'm coming late to Rav Yassi Shir, and my mind is racing. Like, halavai, these should be all our problems, but like, you want to do a million things, and it's like, what do I do? And you're like, stop. You're not there. Hashem didn't want you there. There is good in this situation. The more I rise over it, the stronger I get.
How does it not lead into
But
complacency?
on top of that, it's like being present, and on top of that also is not pushing away your emotions,
Bringing them in.
attention to what you're feeling, knowing that it will pass, and then connecting it above. Because I think if you just go straight up, it's also could be an
Right.
unhealthy.
So we have to
But
go
it's a way of
backwards.
spiritual bypassing, basically.
Uh-huh.
You don't want to do that.
Right. Maybe that would be like the Ava Misoteris, like jumping right to that. Jumping to Ava Misoteris is saying, if I don't do this right now, this is going to disconnect me from Hashem, so you better do it. But then slowly going through the motions. So it's always a practice of 16 and 17, slow meditation with a couple of pushes of an emergency button to get me to where I need to be, but then go back to slow meditation. So really everything is good. There's two types of good. There's good and then there's really good, right? Like Tov Me'od. Who was just saying this? I think my son's Rebbe was saying this last night. Tov Ma'od. I was like, listen, whenever I'm like go to these orientations, I sit in the kid's desk. I'm like, wow, I do not have attention span to sit in desk. And then like the Rebbe was writing stuff, and I was like getting distracted, right? But he was saying this thing about Tov Ma'od. Tov Ma'od is very, very good. What does it mean? There's good that's down here, but if I want to get to the very good, I have to go all the way on top. That all the way on top is hidden. So I dream about it. I'm like, if I want, this situation is good right now, but I want to make it better, even deeper, something that maybe I don't even understand, that I need to translate it. I need to recognize that every experience is really just bringing me closer to Hashem. Does that help you? Does anybody else have?
Sure,
I think.
Share from Kodesh, and he said that when you sin, you have to be happy because you realize that you're broken, and then you connect it to Hashem, and you say, I can't do anything without you, Hashem. So that should bring you simcha. I don't know, that's not a practical example, but just know that we have Hashem. We can ask Hashem for anything, and we have Hashem on our side.
Right. I think we said that in one of the classes. It is very doable. The second you recognize that you have Hashem, Hashem is in your toolbox. The second you realize you're not alone. My daughter's struggling. I sit by lunch by myself. I'm alone. I'm like, you're not alone. Hashem's with you. I sit by myself on the bus. Nobody wants to sit with me. You're not alone. Hashem's sitting with you. Say things like that to make Hashem present in your life. And the more present He is, He's there in the difficulty also. He's always here.
I think it's very personal. What would work for one person would not work for someone else.
And also what works for you today might not work for you in 10 years or a year.
And what works for one situation might work for a different situation.
But I do think being present, it sounds the opposite. But being present in whatever's going on now, what does Hashem need from me, will align you more with your will being Hashem's will, and then you flow up, it flows down, basically.
I think also, and just to add to that, is that I heard this from a really, really amazing therapist, that she was saying that allowing yourself to be in the moment and be in the sadness, right? And not necessarily problem solving immediately, which is kind of the meditative experience where you're just thinking, and then you can get through to okay, when you're meditating and you're listing all the things in your life, whether they're good or bad, and thinking, okay, this is all from Hashem, this is all from Hashem. So you're allowing yourself to accept the emotion and feel it, and not become complacent in those moments, and then also connecting to it.
That's a lot of working through.
It's a lot.
And grounding and processing to get to the end.
It's a lot of working through, but it gets easier. It's like lifting weights. It's
it also doesn't happen overnight.
Oh no, it doesn't. I'm like, oh, my whole life changed because I'm doing 9 weeks of Tanya. I am just getting started. We're just getting started. We're scratching the surface.
Feel sad.
No.
That allow your sadness
you
to
know
bring
what?
it to happiness.
It's funny, right?
Because sometimes you need to feel the sadness, and then you go through the motions and the tools of connecting to God, and then you're okay, the sadness brought me to happiness too.
Yes, but also here's an important thing that we say pain is bad. Pain is a sensation. That means if it's a sensation, that means it leaves you. If you get
growing pains, there's labor pains.
Right.
There's so many good.
There's finger paper cut pains, right? There's little pains, but right. But if you ever got a bad paper cut,
They hurt every time you touch them.
kill, and then it's my whole body's killing.
Doesn't bring you to anything.
Doesn't-
Labor pains,
I know.
growing pains,
The kapara for something.
Always, I'm like, it's a kapara.
There you go.
Kapara.
Yeah, there you go.
Especially now, we need it. But when it pulses.
You appreciate the different
You have a
things.
finger, right?
You
Yeah.
never appreciate how much
Right.
stuff you do with one
Right.
finger, and it's
Oh
my
my
finger's
gosh!
bad, commission,
Right?
I can't do anything.
Yeah, if your thumb, you're gone. You cannot peel vegetables. You can't do anything. But the idea is that pain is not an emotion because we know where emotions come from. Where do emotions come from? Where's the emotion store? From our brain, from our intellect. So pain is not an emotion.
Right.
When you say you feel pain, it's a sensation, and
It's a stimulus.
it's a stimulus, right? It's when you feel pain, right? Hot, right? Your brain says, okay, send a message to move your hand back. That's a stimulus. That's a sensation. That's not actually making a dent in you. I mean, it is at some point, but it's also bringing you closer. So pain is like you said, a stimulus response, and how I feel the pain and the story that I tell myself about this pain is emotion. I don't know if you've ever gone into the pity party, right?
Ruminating.
It's ruminating. It's why is this happening to me? Why did this happen to me? Why is this one sick now? They just started school. Why am I back at work? Why am I this? Why? And it's you could pity yourself from here to tomorrow. It's like the venting club. We don't want to be as long as it's, and even it's emotional, as long as you bring it back to the source, you're good to it. So what do we do about pain? The pain that you feel, just feel it. And it doesn't have to be something so big. It could be small pains. It could be, oh, we said paper cut small, but what are those small little things that could derail us?
Not having parking space when you're running late.
Right. Yeah, like little things. So it's like, what is that? So when I'm experiencing that sensation of pain, of being late and being stressed out, I don't want to turn on the negative emotions. I don't want to go there, because once I turn on the negative emotions, then I'm going to be in a place where the animal soul controls my uppers. So we don't want to like lie to ourselves. We don't want to like rationalize. We want to actually let the emotions come from the right place. So the idea is that, let's just wrap this up. And I wanted to connect it also to, yes, I will save these lies for when people are cooking and cleaning. Somebody's asking me, of course. That's when I listen. So I want to just end off with this idea, because I think it's like going into Rosh Hashanah, is that like when we read on Rosh Hashanah, I'm not sure if it's the Haftorah or the Laning or whatever, but I know we read the story of Hannah. I'm going to make it to shul on time. So the first day we read about Hannah, right? So what do we know about Hannah? What happened? She was in Akara. She was in a lot of pain, right? Okay, so she was there on Rosh Hashanah and she was davening, and she was davening for a child. Or my tables and chairs for you. I told you, I'm having a lot of people, so it could be that. Is it? Oh, okay. Perfect. Is this our time to go? They could just put it right here in this first room. Thank you, Mary. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Right when you go around over there. Yeah, you'll see it on the left. So when we read the story of Thank you. When we read the story of Hannah, it says that Eli says to her, "Are you drunk?" Right? She was davening, "Are you drunk?" But if you learn the halachas, I mean, I never really learned the halachas based on Mikdash and Mishkan, but you're not allowed to be drunk. So if somebody is actually drunk, you need to like pick them up and remove them from davening. But he was saying, "Are you drunk? Are you self-indulgent? Are you just worrying about the thing that you need?" Like when you're in the holiest place in the world and you're like talking about your problems. I always think about this like when it comes to Rosh Hashanah. But what we're going to learn is that yes. Yes, this our tefillos self-indulgent. It's amazing. I'll send it to the group. Our tefillos self-indulgent. Yes, they are self-indulgent if it's just for you. But what did Hannah say? Hannah's like, Eli, no, you're wrong. I want this child because why? I'm going to give him right back to you, right? Shmuel, right? He's going right back to Hashem. I want to have this child so that I can give it to you. And all of a sudden he was like, whoa, okay, that 1 second. I am, and by the way, I know Lisa Klein's not here, but we always talk about this. Like, to what point do you say, I need this kitchen because I'm going to give my kitchen to Hashem. Like, I'm going to give this dining room right here. This is Torah. This is Hashem. I made a conscious decision. We're going to learn Torah in this room. Right? So Eli could be like, yeah, everybody says that. I'm going to build $1 million house and I'm going to give it to Hashem. No. You really give it to Hashem. Like, really, really think that. And I feel like we've said this so many times through Tanya, but this should be like your one like takeaway to Rosh Hashanah is that when you daven, you're davening on Rosh Hashanah for the hidden good to be revealed good. All the hidden stuff in the upper worlds that don't look like it's good, let those be seen to me as good. Like we come Rosh Hashanah, we're like, Miyah Mus, right? All this stuff, and we get sad and we evoke emotion and we invoke pain, and it's like, no. Everything that I'm giving, another year here, all the tzedakah that I give, all the tshuva that I do, it's all for you, Hashem. Everything is from you. And the more bittul you have, the more you make space for Hashem. Think about that bottom hay. The more you expand that bottom hay, the bigger kli you have to receive the yud and the k and the vav. So it's like, we are here, we're going into Rosh Hashanah now, and it's like everything from this world. There's no end, by the way, to Rosh Hashanah, because like, there's still Yom Kippur, and there's still Shana Rabbah, and there's still Hanukkah, so Hasidus teaches us that like it's never like sealed and delivered and that's it. We still have time, but spend time to say that I have this child and I want to show the world that Hashem is running the world. I really just want to show Hashem that everything that I have in this world I'm using for you, so let me do it more. Give me a child so that I can do it more. Hannah, could be she had a lot of money and it could be she had a great Rosh Hashanah menu, but she still gave everything for Hashem. So everything in the higher source is there in the Yud and the K. It's just not translated. Let's translate it by revealing the darkness of the revealed good and bring it into this world, and that will bring us joy. And then next week we'll do how to deal with spiritual problems, which I think will be good for Yom Kippur. Okay. Questions?
Oh, okay, that's very nice.
Very nice. Oh, thank you. Thank you for joining. Okay, I'm going to end this. I hope that I